So welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight for our week 2 preview meeting, our orientation. We're going to go through some stuff, some information about camp for next week. We've got a big camp, big program planned for y'all. We're going to talk about program. We're going to talk about logistics. We're going to talk about a few things. As we go through, if you have any questions for us, you can feel free to post messages into the chat. We're pretty quick about being able to either have the speaker see that and pick up and respond to that in real time, or one of the rest of us will catch those and respond to them in the chat as well. Or you can unmute yourself and interject as well if you wish. So we will get going here. All right, so we have with us here tonight, you have me, I'm Brian Murray, I'm the camp director. We have Josh Clark, our program director, and Quinn Ciccolella, our commissioner. Same Key 3 team that's returning from last year. We're really excited about that, and a lot of great experience there. So those are the 3 that will be sharing some information with you tonight. So we wanted to start with check-in procedures for Sunday. And just a reminder that our check-in time begins at 1 o'clock. That's the camp check-in time. And so at that point, troops can start gathering a little bit before that time, but we really ask you to try to limit how much earlier you're getting to the parking lot before that time. 12:30 is fine. Plenty of time to be able to get yourself organized and start moving into camp. Much earlier than that, and kids are standing out in the sun for a long time. You know, if it's raining, they're standing in the rain for a long time, and parents are wondering, why are we here at noon and that staff's not letting us in yet? Because we check in at 1. We've got staff meeting going on at that time, just before that, and doing some projects. So we'll be ready to go to let you in just about 1 o'clock. At that time, staff guides will come up to the parking lot and will greet the troops, and they will begin guiding the troops down into the campsites. When that happens, the process that we'd ask you to follow is that the scoutmaster, or whoever is the scoutmaster in charge for next week, even if it's not the official scoutmaster, brings a troop roster down to the office to meet with me, and we're going to check you in. That process usually goes pretty quickly, and we're just going to make sure that the folks that you've registered matches the folks that you've brought with you that day. See if there's anybody that's missing from the list or anybody that needs to be changed from that process. And because the scoutmaster is coming down to check in with me, and there might be a couple people in line ahead of them, so it might take a few minutes to get through. When the guide takes the rest of the troop down to the campsite, we ask that that group of people takes the medical forms with them. We don't want the scoutmaster bringing the medical forms with them to the camp office, because when they get to the campsite, the medical officers are going to be ready to begin doing med checks. We have several of them around the camp, and they may be ready to jump in and start working with your troop, but the medical forms are up at the office with the scoutmaster. So send the medical forms down with the scouts, and that helps a great deal. The troop guide will give 1 vehicle permit for the troop to be able to transport gear or a trailer down to the troop site. And when that happens, like we really need you to keep it to 1 vehicle per group. One of the things that you'll probably hear me say a few times tonight is we have a lot of troops coming into next week. It might be a record that I can think of in my time, which is fairly long, of the number of troops in 1 week. We have 20 troops coming into camp next week. Now, we have 10 campsites. Most of those troops are on the small side, so we have plenty of room to accommodate everybody, but that's 20 troops, that's 20 vehicle passes, that's 20 vehicles going down roads that in some cases are really one-way roads and not two-way passable. If everybody's trying to bring a second or a third vehicle and sneak it in, it's going to be a very difficult situation for everybody, and we're going to be blocking up roads and creating some challenges there. So we do ask you to please limit the traffic to 1 vehicle per troop at a time. If you have multiple vehicles that need to come down, you just relay it. 1 vehicle goes down, comes back up, hands off the tag, sends it down with the next vehicle to bring other things down. But if we could please keep 1 vehicle to the site at a time, we'd appreciate that. For the troop trailers that are coming in, those do need to be kept clear of the roads when they're parked. You can keep your trailers down at the site, but we ask that the trailers be kept in sort of that transition space. I hesitate to use the word driveway because it's not exactly a driveway, but there's a little bit of a transition space in each campsite between the road and the site itself. We don't want the trailers going into the sites. We also don't want them staying on the roads where they're blocking traffic. So there's always a little bit of a spot in between there where the trailers can be stored for the week. And so bring the trailer down, detach it, take the vehicle back up to minimize the amount of space that it's taking up, and please return those vehicle passes to us on Sunday afternoon. Those are not permanent passes, but rather just for check-in and move-in. Okay. In terms of health and safety for the week, some of the things going on there, we've got, as we've sent out messages previously, beginning of the month, all adults are expected to must have current youth protection training, current BSA youth protection training, and be cleared through the New York State background check prior to arrival, right? That applies to every adult that's going to be remaining in camp, regardless of their length of stay. This doesn't include visitors, like somebody who's coming in for barbecue night or something like that, but any adult that's going to be staying with and supporting the supervision of the scouts needs to have YPT and be submitted through the background check. If that adult individual, this is 18 plus, is also staying for more than 72 hours, then that individual needs to be registered with BSA in a registered position, assistant scoutmaster, committee member, something along those lines, with the troop. So if you have not yet registered as yourself or as other adults within your unit for the background check, please do so within the next 24 hours. Earlier this month, I already submitted a list of about 500 names of people from staff and NYLT and adults who had submitted for the background check. About 500 names went through that process. But if we miss anybody, we do need to make sure that we get them in place, because when somebody arrives at camp, particularly on Sunday, if they're not pre-cleared, we cannot allow them to stay. And the New York State office that handles this process is not open on a Sunday afternoon or in the evening during the week. And so therefore, there's not much that we can do to help that person until the following day. So please keep that in mind. Also, I'm just going to put on a plug. I'm going to put my other hat on for a second, which is a safe scouting rep for the council, and just remind everybody that effective September 1st, that second bullet changes. And under BSA policy, the 72-hour rule goes away. And for all scouting events, overnight events, any adults that are staying overnight will now have to be registered with BSA. So even if it's a one-night camp out, they're still going to need to be registered with BSA. So that does not apply to summer camp this year. It will apply to summer camp next year, and it'll apply to any other event, including the council camporee in September or any trips that you take starting September 1. For purposes of identification for folks that are coming into camp, obviously we have a large property. Anybody can kind of get into the property through a lot of different ways. We try to identify everybody that's on the property through, for example, wristbands. The staff wear wristbands that look like this, sort of a black and red tie-dye kind of a look for that. For adults, you will have a similar silicone wristband, but it'll be a white. It's actually like it's supposed to be a glow in the dark kind of band, so we keep track of y'all. So we'll see how that works out. And then there's a separate band that we use for short-term visitors. So parents coming in on parents' night for the barbecue, things like that, they're a different category entirely. If you do have any scouts that need to leave during the week, there is a camper release form. It's available on our website as well as available at pickup that needs to be filled out. So scouts going in for a baseball game or something like that and coming back to camp, they need to be signed out through the office. We need that camper release form. And one of the most important parts of that camper release form is a signature by one of the adult leaders that's remaining in camp. And the reason for that is twofold. It's one, it's kind of a receipt that you know that scout is leaving. And so you're not coming to us a little while later and asking, thinking that you have a lost scout. The second part of that is that obviously you know your family situations better than we do for the scouts within your troop. And so if there's a scout or if there's an adult rather that should not have contact with or should not be taking a particular scout out of camp, it's another line of defense. It's another check to say, nope, that person shouldn't be here. So we ask you to sign off on that before that scout leaves. Continuing with the health and safety stuff, buddy system is in place, and we do expect the scouts to follow the buddy system. We encourage it for adult leaders as well, but as for the scouts, they really need to be following the buddy system throughout camp. We've tried to make this easier in recent years, with last year when we moved ecology and scoutcraft to areas near the waterfront. It really cut down on a lot of the travel that scouts had to do across the wider parts of camp there. So it makes it easier for them to stay within sight and sound of staff during a greater period of their travel, and to have buddies to get between areas. But we do need scouts to follow that. Even if they're not in the same troop, traveling together to go from one area to another is what we need. Sign in, sign out. You'll all receive those little tags that you hang in the campsite to move to the buddy board that says, going to aquatics. And once they get there, every program area has a sign in, sign out book where scouts will sign in and sign out as they leave, so that their whereabouts can be tracked throughout the day. For our emergency procedures, we do have 2 sirens that we use in camp. The first one is a kind of a flat siren that you're going to hear 3 times a day for tests at 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and 5 o'clock. And when the siren goes off at those times, it's only going to go off for a few seconds, and it's really just a test of the system. But if you hear that siren go off for a minute or longer at any point in time during the day, we need all the units to assemble down at what we're calling the Tuscadaga field, which is the field between Tuscarora and Onondaga. It's right where the Gaga ball pit is. And line your troop up by troop, have everybody remain standing until everybody, including the adult leaders, is present. And then once everybody is present, to have everybody in your troop, once everybody in your troop is present, have everybody in that troop sit down in the field. If the field is wet, squat down. That's fine, but just something so we can look across real quickly and see who's fully attended and who we're still waiting on. The other siren that we use, we call the Yelp, and it sounds a lot more like an emergency vehicle, like a police car or an ambulance type siren. And if you hear that, that means we need everyone to get to either the dining hall or Seneca Lodge, because we have some severe weather headed our way, and those are our 2 most secure shelters. The troop may be divided, because we're going to tell scouts to go to whichever one is closest to where they are when they hear the siren. We will communicate between the 2 sites with staff to coordinate to take attendance in both locations to help you make sure that everyone is accounted for in one location or the other. For our active shooter policies, unfortunately, in terms of the structures of the camp, we really don't have what folks would refer to as hardened facilities for this type of a crisis. We're very much an outdoor setting, outdoor environment. So the active shooter scenario is basically if we communicate out through the radios and the remind system that there's an active shooter on premises, that everybody is told to just simply run into the woods and to run as far away as they can until law enforcement comes through and begins collecting people and uses their means to communicate through bullhorns and whatever else to bring everybody back in. But that is our policy for that. We will give each of the leaders, when you check in, a little strip of surveyor's tape or flagging tape. We ask you to put that on the tent where the leader in charge for your troop is staying. And we just use that to mark that tent so that in the middle of the night or late in the evening, if we have to go to that site, either to get people to shelter because there's a storm coming or because there's been an emergency at home and we need to get a hold of a particular scout, we don't want to stand in the middle of the site and have to wake everybody up to find one scout. We'd like to go to the leader and have you help us find that particular individual. And so that leader, that flagging tape helps us out a lot with that particular thing. Tyler Henderson is returning as our health officer this year, so that's why I put his face up there so you can all get to see him and know who he is and that point of contact for health and safety and emergency services. A couple of reminders related to this. All medications that are brought to camp must be in their original containers. That includes over-the-counter medications. And all prescription medications have to have the patient's name on that prescription. Sometimes we get prescription bottles brought to camp that has someone else's name on it, and the story as well. My mom and I take the same meds, or my sibling and I take the same meds, and we just have one bottle and it's the same thing, and we just kind of share it between the 2 of us. We can't have that for camp. It has to be in a bottle that has the patient, the scout that's going to be taking it during the week, have their name on it. We do have 3 automatic defibrillators in camp. should those ever be necessary for a crisis where a cardiac arrest is taking place. And so we have three. One travels with Tyler at all times, or whoever the health officer is that's on charge, on duty rather, because we will have some other health officers that will be rotating through to help with coverage. There's one that's in the office just inside the front door when you come in, and there's one that stays down at the waterfront in the ice house, which is the lifeguard headquarters down there. I mentioned that there will be some other individuals rotating through. Many of you know Tyler also now works full time for the council, and so we're trying to balance his time a little bit. He's going to be living here; he's going to be here most of the time, but we're trying to give him some release time during the day to go do his day job for supporting the council. So we've got some other folks that are going to be rotating throughout the summer. Couple 3 days a week, other nurses and EMTs that are going to be covering that. So we're still covered. It just may not always be Tyler personally for that. Please limit the vehicles that are going through camp. As I said, with 20 troops, if everybody says, well, we're just going to bring one car in, suddenly we've got a traffic jam on roads that are not very passable in some spots, or just one way in some spots. Please make sure that as soon as you pass the ranger's house, it's 10 miles per hour past that stop sign. Also, just a word, coming up Davitt Lake Road is a 40 mile per hour zone there. And two things. One, those are our neighbors and they know exactly where the traffic is going on a Sunday afternoon in the summertime. So we like to try to keep a good relationship with our neighbors, and please ask that you do not speed up the road. There's a lot of children that live on that road. The other thing is, I can't remember the last time I've gone down Davitt Lake Road and not seen a deer. So there are constantly deer crossing that road. And so for your safety, please remember that as you're coming up to camp, and obey the speed limits as you're coming through. Please keep vehicles out of campsites and off grassy areas. As you all, I think, know, it's been, I guess I'm not sure how far we sometimes seem to get these cells that park right over camp, but we've been having a lot of tropical style weather in the last couple of weeks, and camp right now is muddy. It is very muddy, and it's going to get even more so over the next day or two. And so any vehicles that go off the hard packed roads into a campsite, into a field, are going to leave one heck of a mess because of how soupy the mud is right now. So this is another reason why we need to limit the vehicles, because if people have to try to go around a vehicle and drive into a field to do so, they may or may not be able to get out because they've got four-wheel drive, but they're going to leave a heck of a mess behind for the next group when they do so. And please remember, no riders in the backs of trucks or on trailers. That's a big safety issue for BSA. For communication, we do have a few things set up. We are using, again, the Remind alert system. So if you have used this before with us or in school, if you've got the app, you can just go ahead and add the class with the code that you see there to RSR23, or you can text that number at 2SR. Let me try that again, at 2RSR23, and that will join you up on our Remind alert system. We just use that to do a little bit of kind of announcement communication with adult leaders. We'll announce things like reminders about putting the trash out at the end of the night, honor troop of the day, anything like that. We also use it for any kind of emergency communications related to weather or other situations. Not getting a lot of communications. We're not going to be blowing up your phone all day, but we would ask that at least one adult from each unit do that, and we would encourage all the adults to connect with that system. We have the Firestarter newspaper, which is available every morning on your breakfast table, and is also on one of our Facebook pages. Ed Keelan, who's our camp historian and who coordinates the Thunderbird Club for us, he's got the Firestarter posted to his Facebook page. So if any parents want to track and see what's going on a daily basis, they can go to his Facebook page and see the paper. We also have a few email addresses here. My email address is campdirector@rsrbsa.org. food@rsrbsa.org will get you Sean, our cook, who's returning again to us for a third year. medical@rsrbsa.org will put you in contact with Tyler. medical@rsrbsa is going to be the address we give you if there's a missing health form or something needs to be sent to Tyler. That's going to be the address we'll give you to have that direct connection with him. I mentioned Sean returning, which we're really excited about. He's back for a third season. We are continuing with our buffet style service in the dining hall. We've created a new tool for Sean to help track all of the many different food allergies and dietary restriction requests that he gets throughout the summer. He does a really great job of accommodating them. The biggest challenge is always when he finds out about something very late, particularly if it's somebody tells him, you know, 5 minutes before dinner on Sunday that they're allergic to something that we're serving, or sometimes we've even found out about dietary restrictions midweek. So if there's any kind of food allergies or any kind of dietary restrictions, hit that QR code right there, and that will take you to a Google form where you can enter all the information in there, and it gives Sean a live form that he can pull up at any time and see the information as is needed. We still ask you to check in to have those individuals that need those, that have the allergies or have those food restrictions, to check in with Sean when they get to camp on Sunday. When you do the tour, you'll go around to the dining hall, and we'll have you stop in to see, because Sean likes to be able to put the face to the name so he knows exactly who he's helping with these. This is, the sooner the better for this. It gives Sean the opportunity to make sure he's ordered what he needs and that we have the food on hand that is required. There is a link to this also on our camp website, and any phone that has a camera has a QR reader. If you just open up your camera on your Android phone or your iPhone and you point it at that, it's going to pop up a little thing with the link, and then you click that and it'll open up the QR reader for you. But the link for this is also on our camp website, rsrbsa.org, and go to the food tab. There's a more, and you drop down to food, and it's on that page. There's a link on there. And thank you, Quinn. Quinn just threw the direct link into the chat box for you there. We will have Wednesday lunch in the campsites. Patrol cooking throughout the week at other times is optional. And we have a form that you'll receive on Sunday, which has some like a la carte different options there for you. And you can choose the things that you're looking to do. If you want to do cooking in the site, and that food will be delivered to you prior to that meal. We also have garbage collection each night. We ask, please, the best time to put your trash out is when you head down to dinner, because as we all know, after dinner, evening program starts right up after dinner, and the first thing that happens after the meal ends is the kids scatter to the four winds of the camp here, and nobody goes back to put out the trash. So when we go around to do the trash pickup, there's no trash left out. So please put it out before you go down to dinner, and we'll be around in the evening after dinner to collect that and take that out for you. The one exception to that, basically we ask you to leave it out to the entrance to your campsite. The one exception to that, or two exceptions actually, would be the Shindaku and Algonquin campsites. Your two sites are right next to the garbage corral at the dining hall. We ask you just go ahead and put your trash right inside the trailer that's in there, and we'll take it up with the dining hall trash. Just make sure that there's other trash in there. If you go later and it's empty, it means we've already done the garbage run, and we'd ask you to please store your trash or take it up to the dumpsters yourself, because we've already done the run for that particular evening. We don't want to leave one single bag or two bags in the trailer and have them devoured by raccoons or something over the evening for the kitchen staff to find the next morning. Okay, so if you put it out by dinner time, that's going to be the best situation. I've mentioned the barbecue earlier. We do have our family night barbecue once again. We're going to be starting to serve at 6 p.m. And something we started last year, which was really successful, and we're happy to build upon that this year, is online ticket sales for the barbecue. So you go to trcscouting.org, you go to calendar page for that. And I'm going to ask Quinn maybe to throw up the link in the chat box while I'm talking here. But you go to the trcscouting.org, the calendar page, and you pull up the barbecue for this week, and you can purchase tickets online. Tickets are $16 for ages 11 and up, and $10 for ages 10 and under. And everybody that comes to the barbecue still needs to check in at the office. It's on Wednesday, so that's the 5th this week. I'm sorry, 5th this week. I'm not thinking it's the next week. So next week would be the 12th, I guess. So it's every Wednesday night is when we do the Parents' Night barbecue. So we'll have, if guests are not eating, they do not need to pay. You can just come up without eating, but to enjoy the barbecue, we do pig roast and chicken barbecue with a bunch of sides. If you're interested in participating in the barbecue, best thing is to purchase ahead of time. If you don't, you can still purchase at the door. That's fine. And when everybody, whether you're partaking in the barbecue or not, just visiting, we do need you to stop in at the office, sign in, get a visitor's bracelet, and then head down to enjoy the meal. After the meal, there will be a campfire at about 8:15, 8:15 that evening. And that campfire is put on primarily by the scouts. So it's a good time. You get to see all the scouts in action doing the entertainment. All right. Troop photos, we will be taking troop photos on Monday night. Hopefully, we were supposed to take them tonight and we had some bad weather roll through just as we were about to do the photos. So we've postponed it for tomorrow. But the plan would be for Monday night to do troop photos. The photos are $8 each. And that money is payable, when we're taking the photos. You can pay me then. And the two things that we're going to ask you basically when we take the photo, one is how many printed photos would you like to order? And the second question is, would you like your chartered organization's name printed on the photo? Because we print them up with these printed borders and everything. They look really fancy. And one of the things that we usually include for any unit that wants it is the chartered organization. So the church or the Rotary Club or the Elks Lodge or whatever that sponsors your organization, we can print their name right on the photo. So nice little memento for camp. So that will be taken Monday night, and the photos will be returned, printed to the scouts, to the units by the end of the week. All right, with that, I'm going to be quiet for a couple minutes here and turn it over to our program director, Josh Clark.
Looks like my mouse is dying, so I couldn't unmute myself. Hey there, everyone. Brian, would you move the spotlight onto me?
Yeah.
I can't do that with my mouse dying. Hey there. So yeah, we're head right into the program today. I was super happy wandering around to my program area, seeing my instructors, seeing all the scouts out and about, getting started. I'm just so excited. The couple of resources we have ahead of time or during the week is our merit badge lending library. So every program area has all their merit badges, books available for scouts to grab them. A couple of the more wordy Eagle required merit badges sometimes get used more than others, like environmental science or emergency preparedness. We also have a merit badge verification form, which we use for leaders to confirm that some requirements were done ahead of time. For instance, camping merit badge has has a couple of hikes and overnights that could be done ahead of time, so that the merit badge is done. You do not need to fill out these forms if they're not done. At the end of the week, we'll just simply get a partial, and next year or at our merit badge completion day, which I'll talk about later, we can finish up that badge. About midweek on Wednesday, during lunch, we will have all of our staff update all the paperwork, and that resource will be available for adult leaders to check in, make sure our scouts been going where they should be, and they're all on task, and more, and just coordinating with counselors if there's any adult leader coordination needs to happen. So our big programs, we have our Sunday night campfire, and then our Wednesday night barbecue and scout-led campfire that a lot of parents stay for. Our Tuesday night game, which will be Pirates this year, a huge treasure hunt, and see what Pirates can do to get us out and going. We have a general open program schedule in the late afternoon, and then in the evening, open shoots, open climbs, open crafts. Pretty much every program area has some activity going on. Tomahawks, bouldering, whatnot. Trailer First Class is also offering Trailer First Class takeout. Trailer First Class is our first year program where our scouts work on requirements that they can't easily do in an indoor setting. a scout that is not taking trailer first class, maybe they're a little ahead, or decided to take other merit badges, or there's a requirement not being covered in trailer first class that a scout or multiple scouts needs, you can reach out to myself or our trailer first class director, Dan, and we will coordinate accomplishing that requirement together. Additionally, we're offering a couple of awards and trainings during those open program times, particularly the LNT, or actually Outdoor Ethics Awareness Award, which is an award for both scouts and scouters, to be completed in a single night. And we have our polar bear swims, so our early morning before breakfast swims, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I mentioned those some of those trainings for our adult leaders, our Leave No Trace, which is both scout and scouter, climb on safely, a lot of the aquatic safety stuff, which is also covered in aquatic supervision, safety afloat, system defense, and the larger ones for aquatic supervisor being swimming and water rescue and paddlecraft safety, which allows your unit to go on water-based activities without a full lifeguard certification. So we have a lot of things for adult leaders, and we're super excited to get any adult leaders to also participate with their scouts or in the various other programs we have going on. We don't need to sign up for any adult trainings or programs. They'll be offered no matter what, and weather permitting. And pretty much they're just a arrive on the day of kind of thing. And then we have that merit badge completion day that I mentioned earlier. That was August 13th. So if any scouts was working on a badge and maybe they had to go home for, there was a party that they missed some time for, or they just simply couldn't complete the handicrafts project, August 13th, you can come on in for a couple hours on that day, prove that we did the requirements, and we can get everything nice and settled and completed. All right, Brian. Oh. Any questions on program before I pass it off?
Okay.
The water slide is up. It is working. It is full slide. It is ages 13 and up, as well as being a swimmer. Let's see, smartphone devices. So we have computers in our office for any of the merit badges that require some research in personal time. So there is no need for phones, laptops, or whatnot. Besides, most scouts bring their phones. Some of our instructors will utilize phones, laptops, and iPads to facilitate some videos or some like app-based nature, the astronomy stuff going on. But that's all our resources, and your scouts don't need to bring anything technology-wise. And the completion day is at Rotary. It'll be our final day of the year.
Great. And we will have online registration available for that merit badge completion day. It'll be posted up here before the end of the summer there, so folks can sign up for that. I've already added my name to the security list and I'm registered. What do I do? Who do I talk to if I decide to camp with the troop? If it's Petra, to your question there about who do you talk to if you decide to camp with the troop, first communication would be with the troop. Okay, so assuming that you've already had that communication, that that the troop is there. If you're in the security, if you've done the Google form for the background check, that's one thing that we need. Then we have the registration for camp, the youth and adults that registered for camp in Black Pug. If your name is not on that list, then first communicate with the unit to make sure that they're aware that you're coming in, and then let us know. You can shoot me an email to make sure that we know, just from a tent assignment standpoint, that we have the right number of people for the right number of tents for that unit there. So there, for the emergency, we have a list of prerequisites that is in the leader planning guide and on our website. Those prerequisites are requirements that are typically not easy to do in camp, or in some cases are impossible to do in camp. Like Josh referenced the camping merit badge, where you have to have a certain number of nights camped before you begin the badge, 20 nights of camping. You can't do that in a week of summer camp. So you have to come in with that. If you don't complete those prerequisites, you come in, then some of the prerequisites we list can possibly be done at camp, but they're a lot easier done out of camp. Some of them just can't be done in camp. And so if a scout does not come in with those already done, then they would be able to do all the other requirements. They would end up with a partial for the week. But remember that a partial merit badge, we've talked about the merit badge completion day. They can finish it up at the end of the summer if they work on those requirements and bring back the evidence of completion before August 13th. But the other thing is that a partial is good up until that scout's 18th birthday. So it's not like there's some magic thing that, like, within 6 months or a month or whatever, if poof, they have to start all over again. They have until they turn 18 and leave scouting to continue and finish that merit badge at any time. So there's generally not a big rush with that one. And in terms of the question from Dave there, anything special about splitting the week? As long as they're both in the background check and they've both been checked, then that's fine. You're coordinating the ins and outs of those that are coming through. Josh, you had something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to follow up on the requirements, just the phrasing. Brian said, like the camping and emergency preparedness, if we don't have them, we cannot start. We can start all of our merit badges. If no prerequisites were done, all those merit badges can still be done. Well, they'll get the partial. So if they aren't coming in with their 20 days of camping, that's a-okay. That's perfect. That's actually how I prefer to counsel that badge when I do it outside of camp. Same thing with emergency preparedness. That 2C requirement is a little wonky. It's hard to read. It's hard to figure out what exactly it wants from you. If you're not sure, send your scout to camp. Our area director, Nate Shoemaker, has been doing this for 3 or 4 years, and he will make sure everything's communicated to that scout. They can go home and facilitate that perfectly. So no worries about that. We can get the merit badges done. It may just take longer than a single camp week. Making sure I didn't have any other program things on here. No, I'm going to back off.
Okay. To the question about, for an adult leader that has stayed to camp with the troop, can you stay during the night and leave during the day? Yes, if the troop still has the minimum supervision required during the day. So that is possible there. That, if you've got adult leaders that are taking shifts and rotating in and out, then yes, certainly adult leaders can come and go during the week, but there needs to be that minimum supervision for the unit throughout the entirety of the week. Josh, you want to take this one on TTFC takeout?
All right. So Shuttle First Class is our requirement focused program. So trying to get some of those outdoors, hard to cover skill-based requirements. An individual who is or is not in Shuttle First Class, who wants a requirement that completed that isn't being completed by the program, or they're just not in the program and they need help with something. I'm thinking navigate at night without a compass. Like those weird ones that most of our adult leaders don't have any idea how to go beyond finding the brightest star in the sky. We can assist with that. We are trained to deal with those things to make sure the scouts can learn that and do it. So we have open program time, which we can coordinate to meet with that scout and coordinate the completion of those requirements. So if you have a scout in your units that's got this wonky requirement that you just need to get done, and for whatever reason adult leaders or the older scouts can't help with that, we can help. So pretty much on Sunday, Monday, you'll be talking with myself or our Shuttle First Class director, Dan. Is that clear? Get a thumbs up, Isaac.
Great. All right. Thank you, Josh. All right. So we have a few more things to go over, and we'll certainly take questions at the end as well. So you can keep thinking of those questions or throwing them into the chat there. I did want to talk about one other thing related to program, and that's an update on our COPE program. So we learned within the last few days that one of our senior staff members is unfortunately going to be needing to leave us early at the end of this week. And that has created a little bit of a knock-on effect. It's created a little bit of a, as we've had to try to rearrange coverage to move to different areas. So the consequence of that is that unfortunately, we will not be able to offer the afternoon COPE program next week. We are not going to have the staff to be able to do it safely and by standards because of the minimum requirements that are necessary for an 18 plus old instructor with a high degree of training for this particular field. We're disappointed by this. This is the first time that I can remember ever having to cancel a program such as this in the middle of the season after we'd promised it. And this is going to affect a few scouts that have signed up. I think there were about 4 or 5 scouts that had signed up for COPE. So that's another thing, is that the numbers for the program for next week we were going to have to work on trying to get some CITs or adult leaders to join the group to make it viable anyway. Because if you're unfamiliar with COPE, COPE is a group dynamics team building program. It's very similar to Project Adventure, which you may be more familiar with, and it occurs in some of the schools. And to do it, you need a group, right? It's a group dynamics. You need a team, and there's a kind of a minimum number of scouts you need in order to make that work. And we were not quite there. We were going to try to get the numbers for next week to make it so that those scouts could still have that program. But now that we've been faced with this staffing challenge, we are not going to be able to offer COPE next week. This does not affect climbing merit badge. We've been able to move the staffing around to support climbing merit badge in the morning. So we have the necessary staff to meet the standards, to be safe, to have experienced personnel on hand, but we couldn't do it for the afternoon as well. So unfortunately, and this breaks my heart as a former COPE director, and knowing that the COPE director this year was very enthusiastic, super enthusiastic about wanting to do this. This is their first year doing COPE and wanting to really do this program. This is hard for us, but we're going to have to do that as a concession to safety and meeting the standards for the program. So we will still have climbing merit badge. This doesn't affect any scouts that are signed up for climbing merit badge. We will still be able to do some things with maybe some of the afternoon program time. I will be reaching out to the units and scouts that had signed up for COPE and let them know that this is happening. As I said, this just kind of came on us in the last couple of days. So we're wanted to communicate that with you tonight. We're going to reach out to the units that are affected and the scouts that are affected, and basically they will be removed from COPE, and you will have the opportunity to, just like you registered them for their programs before, you can still go in and register them for an alternative program. So you just register them for something else just like you did before. We do have some waiting lists for next week because of the nature of kind of the number of scouts that are in camp for next week. If we can, we will try to get those scouts, if they are leaving COPE and want to go to something else where there's a waiting list, I will try to get them into those sessions. I can't promise that we'll be able to do that for all sessions. Like, for example, we are maxed out on the shooting sports, the rifle and shotgun classes for next week. And we are at a point where it's not reasonable and safe for us to increase the size of our shooting sports classes beyond where they are right now. So the only way anybody's going to come off the waiting list for shooting sports for next week is if somebody else drops, which can happen. Sometimes a scout may choose not to, but that would be the one change there. When do the scouts get their program? The scouts registered for their program a couple months ago. The units have the opportunity through the unit leaders to they've shared their requests with the unit leaders. Unit leaders go in, the scoutmaster, whoever's in charge of that process for a particular unit, would go in and select the classes for those scouts through an online system that we have. So that process should have been done at this point for the scouts. If it hasn't been, they can still do that. The unit leaders have complete access to be able to make changes to schedules up through about 6 o'clock on Sunday. At that point, the unit leaders lose the direct access to go into the system to make schedule changes, but we can still make those changes. So, for example, the most common change on a Sunday night is a scout does not pass their swim test on Sunday. And so they were registered for swimming merit badge or one of the aquatics badges, and they can no longer take that aquatics badge because they didn't pass their swimmer's test. Come see us in the office that afternoon or that evening, and we can make a switch and kind of move them around so that they can get out of the swimming and into something else that we can do. So typically, as I said, the scouts have shared that information with their unit leaders, and the unit leaders have signed them up for that. So I will be reaching out to the groups that are affected by this COPE thing, and we'll get them squared away with a new schedule. Okay, the other thing that we introduced last year was a new way of keeping records for our merit badges. We are no longer using the traditional blue cards to track records. All of your merit badge records are going to be kept in the same Black Pug system that you use to register for camp. So at the end of the week, I will have the opportunity to export merit badge records to Scoutbook. So for those groups those troops, which is most of you that are using Scoutbook to track this, it worked most of the time last summer. There were a few wrinkles. Hopefully the technology is a little bit stronger this year. Haven't had a chance to put it through its paces yet. We'll find out at the end of the week, but we will be able to export those records. The one thing that Scoutbook does not allow an import of is any rank advancements or any awards. It only allows me to export merit badges. So if you have scouts that complete, let's say, mile swim or snorkeling, or they're in TTFC and they're completing rank advancement stuff, you will have access to all those records in Blackbug that you use to register for camp, but I will not be able to export that into Scoutbook. You will have to enter that manually, but that's just rank advancements and awards. So that's a very small part of what we do over the course of the entire program at camp. So basically the way this works is when you log into your, when the unit contact for summer camp, the one person who's got control of the account logs into their account for after summer camp or even during summer camp, and you go to your roster that has that top that looks like it says on the screen right there. That's where you have the names of all your scouts underneath it. And you can see that there's 3 tabs right there: participants, payments, and reports. If you click on the reports tab and scroll down, you will have all sorts of different ways that the reports that slice and dice, the merit badge data for your scouts. In fact, during the week, you will be able to see some of the merit badges being updated in real time. Some of our merit badges counselors are able to do that better than others. It depends on how many merit badges one instructor is responsible for, whether or not they have internet access in their program areas, things like that. But some of them are updating it through the week. Some will update it on Wednesday, as Josh talked about before, and again at the end of the week, so you'll get that progress report and final report. But some you'll be able to monitor day to day and see how the scouts are doing by logging into your Black Pug account and pulling up the reports. This also is there long after you go. If you were the unit contact for last summer, you can go into your account tonight and pull up the records from your troop from last year. So if you've got scouts with partials or anything like that, you can pull that information up and have access to all of that. So this works really well. You do also, one of those report options also gives you the option to print off traditional blue cards. You can stick a piece of paper in it. Doesn't have to be blue. You can make it blue if you want. You can make it a different color if you'd like. You can run it through and a printer will print it with all the design, just like a traditional blue card for the scouts, if that's something you'd like to have. But you don't have to. You can just have it in the digital through Blackbook. All right. So I want to turn it over at this point to our commissioner, Quinn Cicolella.
Quinn did get preoccupied, so I got
okay. You got this? Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to turn it over to Josh.
And go ahead and give me the whole slide.
Yep, I will. Just 1 second here. I'm trying to.
Yep. So the commissioner is a point in contact and liaison for our units and unit leadership. They're really the problem. Quinn is really the problem solver that makes this camp work. He went off to help some scouts who was having some not so comfy feelings about his tent, and he's off into the night helping the scout. The commissioner service to create this relationship will do daily campsite visits. interact with adult leaders that are there, and kind of just look for campsite improvement projects, look for general cleanliness and organization of the campsite, and help coordinate us to be the best units we can be. The one thing Quinn wanted to point out that he noticed many units were struggling with in past years, that were getting points off of this top scoring system to become an honor troop, was the paperwork in the adult leader packets weren't getting posted on our bulletin boards. So he's very much trying to make everyone remember to post those on Sunday night once you get your packets. Things like leaky tents, campsite issues, anything that's a little off and you think someone could help you with, that's exactly what Quinn wants to hear about. With latrine cleaning, we cleaning it once a day, and then we're putting a small handful of wood shavings down each seat to keep the smell in the back of the decomposition working properly.
Great. Thank you very much, Josh.
But he had a second slide. Oh, okay.
No, I guess he did. Sorry about that. I forgot about that.
It's like, whew, he had an easier job than I thought. All right. So additionally, the quartermaster is where tools are kept, shovels, rakes, items to help campsite improvement projects, as well as things like toilet paper and other latrine and cleanliness materials are available at the trading post quartermaster. If no one's there, we at the office will happily get you what you need. All right.
Great. All right. Okay. So Josh mentioned the paperwork that are part of the Scoutmasters packet that we give you when you check in on Sunday. Some of the stuff that's in there is schedules, which we will give you each week because they change a little bit week to week based on staff schedules and such. But the stuff that doesn't change, which includes like duty rosters and the kind of the general camp schedule and some other things like that, all of that has been posted on our website as well. So if you wanted to get ahead and take a look at the duty rosters or take a look at some of the stuff that's in there, if you go to our website, rsrbsa.org, and across the top, there's some headings. One says resources. Click that tab, go down, and it's got a lot of the Scoutmaster packet is all there. So you can download the PDFs of those documents or take a look at a few other things, including YouTube videos about Black Pug and the leader and parent planning guide, other great resources to help get you ready for camp. All right. So with that, we're going to turn it over to some questions here, and the chance for any additional questions that you haven't had a chance to ask to either Josh or I. Any questions? We wowed him. But we did handle a lot of questions.
I guess
in the chat. Go ahead.
Brian, I have a question. You mentioned the health safety officers and various ones. So this mean this year we will not be, as part of our tour, stopping at the health office, health lodge with the forms on our way to the waterfront? That will be done.
Nothing changes with regard to check-in. So
okay.
With check-in, for many years now, we have had multiple health officers on Sundays. That way we can get everybody through as quickly as possible, get you down to the waterfront, get you off to the rest of your tour. So that will be unchanged, which typically means that we have some troops go to the health lodge to check in, some troops go to the Grizz Pavilion, some troops check in up top at the shed across from Mohawk. There's three, and there's usually another health officer that rotates out to a couple of other sites. So we usually have about three or four health officers that will rotate around on Sundays and take care of the check-ins. And that has not changed. So most units don't actually go to the health lodge on Sunday. They're usually the ones that do that are only the ones that are staying down in like Iroquois and Tuscarora, that area. The others go someplace else to be checked out on Sundays. What I was referring to more was the idea that during the day, So Tyler can go into the office and work. We have other folks that we know that are EMTs and nurses that may come in for a few hours or for the day shift just to help us out and be on call for any situations during the day, help with the distribution of medications, things like that, while Tyler's out of camp. So we will always have people on staff. In addition to that, by the way, Josh is an EMT, our Ranger Joel is an EMT. So we normally have at least 3 EMTs, not counting those who are here as adult leaders that are often medical personnel themselves. So we're totally covered. But Sunday, no change from the process that we've been doing in the past. Joe asks if scouts can be waitlisted. Yeah, as long, you can always waitlist scouts from the first point when we started registration a month or so ago. If a scout wants to do something and that class is full, you select it and it gives you the option to add that to the scouts wait list. And then you can then select something else for that time slot. So basically what that means is that if the scout is moved off the wait list and into a class, their second choice gets dropped and they go back into their first choice. But if you don't add them to the wait list, we don't know that they're looking to get into that class. So they should be added to a wait list if they can. We've already moved several scouts, many scouts off wait lists for next week, but it really does depend on the batch. There are some things that we can expand easier than others. Some there's safety considerations, some there's equipment considerations. I already spoke about shooting sports. You know, we were up against an equipment limitation, for example, with stand-up paddle boards. We had 8 scouts signed up for stand-up paddle boards, and I had 2 on the waiting list. We went out and bought 2 more stand-up paddle boards, so we were able to move those 2 kids into the program. So there are some things that we can do to be able to accommodate those waiting lists. There are some things that we can't really do because of the safety or staffing ratios that are required. You know, if I currently have a, for example, it's the, what is it, 3:30, 4 o'clock, something with whatever the last session is of Nature Merit Badge, because it's a half-hour session. Everybody really loves to stick kids into that session because it kind of fits neatly into their time slot. We have a 12-person class capacity for that. I have a 14 scout waiting list for that Merit Badge right now. That ain't gonna happen. We're not putting 14 more scouts into a 30-minute Merit Badge. They just won't be able to do it. There's no way that they could get through that. But as I said, we bought 2 new paddle boards, $1,000 to be able to move kids this week and in future weeks into that program. But there's other things that we can't necessarily do. You got an answer to the question about checkout and pickup on Saturday. We have our closing ceremonies right after breakfast, right around 8:30, 8:45. Parents are welcome to attend. And then once closing ceremonies are over, scouts are dismissed to go back to their campsites, pick up their gear, do the final inspection and checkout, and off they go. So usually by about 10 o'clock, you know, 9:30, 10 o'clock, they're done with the closing ceremony around 9:30, and the troop is usually done with packing up their campsite and getting ready to head out somewhere closer to 10 o'clock, 9:45, 10 o'clock. If there's thunderstorms, I talked about the siren that we have. Good question about whether or not if the thunderstorms occurred during the night. The reality is if we blow that particular siren at, let's say, 1 o'clock in the morning, most people, if it's already raining, most people probably aren't going to hear it because of the fact that you've got rain beating down on a canvas tent and people are, you know, sleeping well, and the scoutmaster is snoring in the next tent. So, you know, it's it might be a little tough to hear that. So this goes back to why we have the tags on the scoutmaster's tents. If we have a thunderstorm in the middle of the night, we would send staff in vehicles out to every single campsite, and we're going directly to that scoutmaster's tent, and we're telling them we need to get everybody out of here, and we're getting them to help us to get everybody woken up and moved down to those shelters. So if we have to do something like that in the middle of the night, we're not going to rely just on the siren. We will do that. I had a question about sleeping arrangements for adults. Sleeping arrangements for the adults are the same as the kids. We have these 9 by 7 foot canvas wall tents. You saw a couple of pictures of them in the slide deck there, where they're up on a platform, 2 cots in each tent. Same for adults and for youth. We provide enough canvas and enough tents for all adults, all youth. Earlier this week, I reached out to a few of you because we moved a few troops around in different campsites because we went through and did a check of making sure we had ages and genders and everything figured out to make sure we could do the tenting assignments. And I think we got it all squared away. So everybody's going to have enough tents in the campsites However, you're welcome to bring your own tent if you'd like, right? If you want to bring a personal tent because you're just more comfortable with that. Sometimes a scout likes it because you zip it up and there's no bugs inside. Whatever, you're welcome to do that, but we will provide enough canvas for everybody. So yeah, so that's that. For cooking merit badge, planning on having the scouts prepare a menu for meals. So we don't offer cooking merit badge, so I'm assuming you're talking about doing that with your own counselors within the troop, which is fine, and they can certainly do that in the campsite. Part of the cooking merit badge and part of the reason why we don't offer it as a merit badge is the scouts have to create their own menus and then obtain the food and prep the food and do all the rest of the stuff, which they can't really do in a camp environment because it's hard for them to go grocery shopping and plan a menu off of just what we have. The patrol cooking that we do is off of basically a set list of an a la carte menu. There's burgers, there's a few other things on there, and they can choose that and they cook it in there, but that doesn't really meet the language of the requirement. All of which is to say, to your question about that, if you're looking to do this with your own counselors and have them design a menu and prep the meals, we will help them where we can. If we have the things that they're looking for, we can provide that. So the scouts can talk to Sean, our cook, at the beginning of the week and ask if there's certain things that they're looking for. Certainly kind of basic provisions, we would probably be able to support that. If it's specific menu items or food items, if we don't have it as part of our menu, we're probably not going to have it. So you would need to obtain that elsewhere. Hopefully that answers that question and makes sense. But we will accommodate what we can, but it may be more towards the provisions side than to the specific ingredient side if the scouts are coming up with their own menus. The remind code was @2RSR23. And yep, that's the phone number that Quinn put in there. Or if you have the Remind app, you can just add a class to RSR23 and you'll get added into there. Okay, and I see looks like a bunch of people have already joined in, so it looks like the code is working, so that's fantastic. Any other questions?